Welcome to another edition of Jewish Women's Unity Project. Rabbanit Adena Berkowitz and Mrs. Rooksie David and Dr. Rene Levy, author of the best-selling book on Jewish unity in an age of Sinat Chinam. Rabbanit Adena, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good to be back. I was thinking for our conversation, when we take a look at what has been going on beyond the election, but just in terms of the world we live in particular in social media, that what people maybe felt inside of them, now they not only feel it inside of them of extreme dislike, extreme animosity, extreme hatred for the quote unquote other, but there's no cap on verbalizing it. And often there's no penalty for even expressing it. I read something today where someone's life was threatened and they didn't even take the person who was threatening, they didn't, quote unquote, cancel him. I mean, because they were talking about shooting someone. But bringing it back in terms of how we filter things through what Dr. Rene has written about in terms of Jewish unity in a time of Sinat Chinam, let's start, because we see the Torah discusses the idea of feeling hated and potentially and hating someone. We certainly see that in the story of Joseph and his brothers. And my question is, how are people supposed to process those feelings where they don't want to necessarily, live them out, but that's what they're feeling internally, and how that affects them, spiritually and I would say communally as well. So I'll start with Rooksie, and then I'll go to the man that wrote the book. I'll go to Dr. Rene. So we'll start with you, Rooksie.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Adena. I love the way you phrased the question of how are we supposed to process that? We have conflict within ourselves of the Torah is requiring something of me. This feels very hard. This person seems so ideologically different than me. And then I could say, and even then what the Torah wants that person to be feeling or thinking or saying. And I think the message the Torah is giving us is that Hashem has high confidence in us, that we can develop ourselves emotionally. In preparation for this episode, I was thinking about it last night and thinking, the Torah tells us it's not far from you. Lo me'ever hayam hi. Whatever is in this book that you've been given, I trust and have faith in you, that confidence in you that you can do this. And it takes emotional work. We can use an example of it, places that it comes a little easier for us, I would say, is within a family structure. We all have siblings that take our stuff, bother us, but there are siblings and we love them and we put up with them. And even though we may bicker when we're children, when we're adults, generally, we cherish those relationships. And if we have a dear friend who we trust and we have a close connection, they may say something, they may do something, and we will give them the benefit of the doubt automatically because we have this relationship with them. So it seems that the Torah is requiring us to look at all our fellow brothers and sisters of the Jewish people as family. And if they're my siblings and they get on my nerves, I still love them. And it's true, they're getting on my nerves and they're bumping their grocery cart into me in the aisle. That's true. So the requirement to love a fellow Jew is there, even though it is true that what that person is doing is either annoying or at worst antithetical to Torah values. Can we be different? Can we be other? And can we still love each other? And the Torah says, well, actually, you have to do the inner emotional work to be able to come to that.
Dr. Rene, is there permitted hatred?
Yes, there is. But
my permitted hatred is usually directed against Verizon, either Verizon or one of the utilities. salachti, slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. I'm sorry, when you wait 45 minutes, get cut off and you have to keep going. But I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah. The fact that we have not been able to overcome sinat chinam for so long means that it requires a lot of work. Not only a lot of work from us as individuals in our families, us as a people. In other words, it's my belief, I have no proof for that's the last request Hashem is expecting of us. That if we get to a level that we say, look, we understand that hatred is not complex, which it is, but for us, it is a self-inflicted, malignant disease, which we as Jews, which is completely antithetical. In other words, harboring ill feelings is exactly like for people who want to practice. It's like eating pig all day long. Okay, if we have that attitude towards hatred, the world will be grateful to us eventually, because we would have at least opened the horizons of the world so they can see that hatred goes beyond any guardrail of any society, democracy or not. Okay, so the first thing we have to come to is recognize the danger that it is, and not use the word lightly. The genius of the Torah is it commanded us hatred in the heart. Heart doesn't mean the cardiac pump, okay, and the heart rate, of the number of beats per minute. Heart is rabot machashavot belev ish. It's the seat of machashava, okay, and Hatzat Hashem itakum. It's in the zone of Hatzat Hashem. Okay, so hatred, first of all, is not in our heart. It's the emotional part of the brain, and the reason the Torah uses the heart is because the Torah is not interested in anatomy. Anatomy doesn't explain anything. It's descriptive. The Torah is interested in the functional aspect. So when the Torah talks about the lev, okay, and the nefesh, it's talking about functional. If some scientist comes and say, the nefesh is situated in this little organ called the amygdala, so what? See, it satisfies us, but it does nothing, because anatomy is all descriptive. Okay, it's not functional. Okay, so the Torah is interested in the functional, so it makes us focus on hatred in the heart. Okay, and hatred in the heart gets us to exactly what Rooksie was talking about, that if we want at all to deal with it, and I'm saying we have a huge duty to deal with it, okay, as individuals and as role models, we have to go to our emotions and do the work that no nation in the world has done up to now. If anything, we see the opposite. We see the damages of hatred. Okay, it's not a damage of religion. It was, religions were accused. It's really the damage of hatred, is of feeling victimized by other people who don't intend to do it, or feeling victimized by another religion, feeling victimized by another political party, feeling victimized, feeling threatened. Our brain is all day long trying to survive. It's in a survival mode, and it fools us with all these feelings of victimhood, of being threatened, of being uncertain about the future. So that's where the work is situated. Okay, I'll stop there for now, and I hope we can pick it up in terms of what do we need to do.
So here's my question to both of you. There's always like one slight, okay. Yeah, and it happens, we see that some, you have terrible examples of road rage as an example. Somebody cuts someone's off, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you could end up having a murder, so it's like if you're the one that is the recipient of that, count to 10 and just say thank God there wasn't an accident, right? As opposed to you're going to start drag racing the person. But what happens, especially among friends, especially among family, or what happens in your shul, in your synagogue, where there's always one person that the joy they have in their life is to needle you. And you give an example, Dr. Rene, in your book about the example of someone who kind of directs like a nasty comment to someone who was wearing tzitzit, right? Their ritual fringes of like, oh, they're so long you could trip on it, because it's like a gotcha. Like on the one hand, it's like, is he trying to say to the guy, don't be like a show off of how like pious you are? On the other hand, this guy could be a repeat offender. He's always making comments. He's always needling someone. What do you do? How do you confront it? And how do you do your inner cleansing that, your blood pressure doesn't go up, and that even worse, I would say, is that you really begin not only to dislike that person, but potentially, let's say if you're new to Judaism, to observant Judaism, you might reconsider it, because you say, look at it. Well, why is it always the people that are needling me are the people that are, they're quote unquote the most pious? So that's something I want to throw out, because it's beyond just a random encounter or once in a while encounter. It's that relative, it's that acquaintance, friend, or just fellow shul goer, that it's a constant stream of this.
Rooksie, you would like to go, or would you like me to go?
Please, bechavod.
The response to that is, because someone cut me off, because someone commented on my tzitzit, it's not a reason for me to self-destruct. I know ahead of time, like you said it, for all these examples, our reaction is the same. Our reaction is that we immediately feel a distance with that person, even if it's not hatred, just a distancing, okay, which is really the result of instantaneous loss of empathy. See, when our brain receives that, it cuts off your link with that person at all. They're no longer human. Not only they're not Jewish, they're not part of the human race. That's what happens. So we have to decide once for all that our reactions are unacceptable, as logical as they feel to us, because they destroy us. They do nothing to that person. That's step number one. Rooksie, you've heard me say that before, so I would love to hear your comment on that.
Thank you. I would love to dovetail on your words, and also about the Torah describing anatomy, but more conceptually. 5 levels to the soul: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, and yechida. The first 2 levels, nefesh and ruach. The nefesh is the animalistic soul. It's our default mode. I'd rather sit on the couch than be productive. It's our ego, which basically is what we're talking about. Someone offends me, someone needles me, someone cuts me off in traffic. My ego is now threatened. The ruach is the mitigator of the nefesh. And the ruach is the part of us that makes the higher level choices and sort of tries to coax the ego into doing the better thing. Don't want to get off the couch? Yeah, but if you go to work, you get a salary and then you can go on vacation. So too, our work as Jews is to not fall prey to our ego, or you can call it the amygdala. It's to examine our responses. And we have so many mitzvos that are person to person that scaffold us in this way, where we need to judge favorably. We need to emulate God and God's magnanimous allowing us to stumble and bumble and still love us and still infuse us with life. So if we're God-like, we cut the other person some slack, just like God cuts us slack. And there's so many suggestions within Musar, within Mitzvos Ben Adam L'Chaveiro, of how to develop ourselves into the kind of people that don't get thrown off our game if someone cuts us off in traffic, if someone steps on our foot, if someone is rude. It becomes something that we observe in another person, but as Dr. Levy says, the virus doesn't infect us. And there's a beautiful anecdote in the book, Letter for the Ages, the Igeris Haramban, who suggests, of course, that we speak in a soft voice. We view each person as greater than us. We never get angry, and other lofty goals, which I will now say are practical based on what the Torah requires of us. And there's an anecdote where he says a man was traveling as a passenger in the hold of a ship, and it was a pretty nasty conditions down there, but he couldn't afford a better bunk. And he was sleeping, and someone came and emptied his bedpan on him, not even realizing that there was a human being sleeping there. And he said when he realized what happened, his great joy is that he didn't feel insulted. And the Talmud tells us, can we be the one that ne'elavim ve'eno olvim, we are insulted, but we don't return the insult? And how great is them? It's like the bright light of the sun when someone is able to do that. Because Torah is a refinement of human character, and all the mitzvos are to that end. And our ego is saying, no, I'm the little God, but really we have to redirect our ego in service of God with the capital G.
But I would say, what do you say, though, that within the Torah, we see, it says clearly, we hate you, and I feel hated. And we see with, Yosef, that we call like Yosef Hatzadik, I think for that reason, because he's able to overcome it. But even with Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a question of sort of anger management that costs him. But we see it, that at times he has incredible compassion, feeling for Bnei Israel, for the Jewish people. But at other times, he gets, he gets like a parent. It's like I've had it up to here, like a meltdown, right?
So in terms of Yosef and his brothers, I mean, unfortunately, we're still paying the price for that. That is brought to us as a lesson of what not to do with siblings, and that cost has been very high. That cost us the Asara Harugei Malchus. I mean, that's, I don't even know how to understand that. So that's all. And Moshe Rabbeinu is always indicative of anyone involved in communal work. No good deed goes unpunished, and I think we should all know that. At the same time, Moshe's love of the Jewish people was unquestioned and unbounded, probably greater than any other leader we've ever had. And Torah was giving us something to learn from, that yes, even the greatest of the great at a certain point says, okay.
In the case of Yosef, the Torah tells us in this week's Parsha, that about the brothers, it says, Vayisneu oto, and they hated him, al chalomotav ve'al devarav, because of his dreams and because of his sayings. So the beauty of that episode is that all that hatred that got us into Egypt was because of a dream, which has no reality. So we have no control over our dreams. So it was all an empty. It was really sinah for no reason. Is there a better example of sinat chinam for no reason? So the brother says, we hold you responsible for your dreams, and then we hold you responsible for saying them, because you can have dreams, okay? We grant you that we don't control dreams, okay? But why do you say them when what you say paints a picture of us serving you? You're free not to say it, So they hated him for two things. One, no action, okay? But that no action was threatening to them. So here somebody has done nothing, and here's this other group feels threatened enough to kill him. That's the summary of the story. If that's enough for us as Jews to say, I'm not gonna trust my reactions because I can kill somebody because of their dream. So the Torah takes half of the book of Bereshit till the end, till Vaychi, okay? The end of Bereshit, when Yosef talks to the brothers and again sorts it out, and it shows us that they carried it. They were not sure. And then he sorted everything out, and then they could go, they went into Egypt to pay for that.
But I wonder even, I think the Joseph and his brothers story is a good one to use because it's so complex, because they hated him. It wasn't merely that they hated him for the dreams. It was, they hated what the dreams represented. That, is it really representative that it's the message that Hashem is sending, that he's going to lord over them, and the manner, meaning it might be one thing to say like, oh my gosh, like the youngest is gonna, one day we're going to be bowing down to him, including Yaakov.
Would you agree that they added interpretation of the dream? They added intent. They added intent. There was no intent in the dream. He says,
he
told the dream saying, I've been subjected to this dream. This is what I saw. And they introduced intent and felt threatened and felt insulted. That's all they're doing. They did all that. He didn't do it.
I'd like to add to that.
Go ahead.
The seed of this, the brothers' hatred, was planted because they viewed him as the favorite to their father. And that was not dealt with prior to Yosef sharing his dreams and his words with them. So this is the root cause, was that they were envious of him. They were envious of his favor in his father's eyes. And that's where it started. So when he has the dream, then they are already, again, the amygdala is overactive. They're already in a heightened state. And, oh, Dad thinks you're special. Now you think you're special. Now you're going to lord over us. Had they not had that sort of preview or best, prior assumption about him, and he was, the cute younger brother who we all adore, the baby in the family at that point, although obviously Binyamin was born as well, right? And not only that, he's a son of the more favored wife, and their mother is viewed as less favored. And that's actually where the first time the word with the shoresh sin nun aleph appears in the Torah, that Leah felt less than Rachel. So these dreams are coming already stacked upon some animosity that was never dealt with. And then we end up in Egypt. So this being self-aware enough to catch the emotion when it comes up in its nascent form and it's just budding, that takes awareness. It takes being very observant of oneself. It takes being very self-reflective. And doesn't the Torah require that of us in all our avodat Hashem? Hitpalel, the word for tefillah, we have to self-reflect and self-judge. So,
but I'm going to add one more piece that the Torah tells us, and that is that when all of this is taking place, what is Yaakov's reaction? And it says he took it under advisement, but he didn't say anything. And that's what I wonder in terms of all of the paradigm examples, whether Torah-based or just on a day-to-day, is what is the responsibility of people around to intervene, to say something, especially a parent, especially are there obligations for religious leaders, spiritual leaders, men, women who are mashpia, have influence of people, to get involved or is it just a diffusion of responsibility that, I don't, let the parties work it out. I'm not gonna get involved because we see that it's certainly in the cases of the brothers that, I think it's fair to say that might not have been the best tactic of not to kind of have parental involvement there. We've got 2 minutes to go, so I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Rene and Rooksie to kind of sum it up.
Okay, all I'll say very quickly is one of the many reasons, which we'll discuss in the future, for this women's initiative is because women have the unique ability to influence the development and the moral choices of those around them, not only their children, even their husbands. And that's exactly one of the reasons, because they will speak up and they will try to create an environment where those things don't fester. Rooksie, it's yours.
I mean, I don't know that there's anything I can add to what Dr. Levy said. We have multiple examples within Tanakh. On Ben Pellis's wife, who certainly calms him down, saves his life literally by withdrawing him from a machloket. We have other examples of women who were destructive women and other women who were heroic women. And again, this is what the message is that that Dr. Levy is putting out in the world, is this deep work, this Torah value, this emotional work. It is literally from the ground up in the home, parents educating their children, and on a communal level. Of course, rabbis emulating this quality, but also meeting with congregants, working things out. We have this prime example. We talked about Moshe, but his brother Aharon was known as the pursuer of peace. Rodef, he didn't sit back and let things happen and settle and see where the chips fell. He himself pursued mitigating peace between husband and wife, between friends, and he taught his students to do that, and we are required to emulate that as well. So it's work. It takes work. It's deep work. It's important work. And that's why Dr. Levy has been so dedicated to this mission and so persistent in bringing it to people, bringing awareness to people of what is required for us to become emotionally Torah-based Jews.
Okay, on that note, Zev, I think we'll conclude. More work to come.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Good job. All right. Is it okay to hate Verizon? Didn't answer the question. My